I kind of want, some experience and some feeling of love. But let's just keep it in the abstract so that it doesn't really demand or require too much of me. So I'll just seek God on my own terms. I'll seek God when I want to and when I feel like it. But I won't go to church. I won't obey the Ten Commandments and go to church on Sunday all the time, because I'm going to seek it on God on my terms. So seekers kind of can base God on their own terms and not on God's terms. Those are two different things, as we know. And so it can be like a seeker. You say, well, love is in the air. And it's just kind of a general thing, and it's nice, and I feel it sometimes I don't. But we as Christians, we would say what? Love is on the cross. That's very non-abstract. How God is calling us to live, and to live in His life. So it's this call to move from being a seeker to a believer. To believe. Be living, believe. To be living what God calls us to live. Because God is very demanding. Isn't God? Forgiving enemies, dying to yourself, expecting no return as you give, turning the cheek, living for others instead of yourself. So God's a very demanding God. So how do we become a believer? We become religious. We practice our religion, and then God speaks to us. God has an order. God has a mind. God has a way of doing things, and to grow in them. Are we spiritual people? Yes. But are we religious people and coming before God and allowing Him to teach us to grow in His Spirit and His will? And the great reality of the vision of Isaiah, growing in the light of God and who God is for us. 102nd and Division as you're traveling east. New billboard. Imagine if we had no religion. Freedomfromreligion.com. That's what we're facing. Imagine if we had no religion. Imagine if there was no order. Imagine if God did not have a purpose in mind for us. Imagine if we didn't follow that purpose that God has in mind for us, or we didn't believe in that. Imagine how hopeless we would be. And that's the reality of the spiritual battle that's going on. To imagine if there was no religion. Let's just make it spiritual, and let's just make it as seekers of God. Christmas Eve morning, I got an email from a man who's been married a number of years, and I've been able to baptize all their 3 children. So that's great, in honor of the Trinity. And he said, Father John, would you like to go to the Portland Trailblazer Boston Celtics basketball game? I wrote him back. I said, are you kidding? I mean, nothing's going to, nothing will stop me from that. So I was able to go with him to that. And he wasn't really, he was kind of a seeker and a spiritual guy until he was in his 20s. And then his aunt died. And then he started waking up to smell the coffee. So he started to seek out churches and what church should I go to. And he came to the Catholic Church and he said, this is it. This is his early 20s. And then he felt called to adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. Isn't this great? I mean, I was just talking to him. I go, oh, that's going to fit great into the moment. Adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. 2 a.m. Wednesday morning for over a year. And he had to travel 15 minutes back and forth. And he wasn't bragging about that. I was just getting the detail that said, okay, how much of a sacrifice was this guy making? Well, 2 a.m. Wednesday morning from 2 to 3 a.m. How was that experience for him, I asked him. He said, I've never felt closer to God than then. And my prayers, my intentions were in line with the will of God more than they have ever been. And I'm sure that Isaiah prophecy of the light coming into the darkness, he experienced that greater than any other time in his life. Now he's busy, he's married, 3 young kids, a lot more difficult to be there to spend that time with the Lord. tonight, what we do, we could talk forever, but the reality is that God is with us. He's with us in a special presence with the Blessed Sacrament. After the consecration tonight, I'm just going to stay kneeling for a couple minutes. And I invite you, in that time, we will adore the Lord in His body and His blood, just for a few moments, right after the consecration. And we will come to adore Him. And pray for God to speak to you. What's His will for you? What might need to be changed? What might you need to do so that we'd all more